First priority question is in the name of Deputy Michael Moynihan. So, Deputy, 30 seconds.
To ask the Minister for Communications, Energy and Natural Resources his views on the latest EirGrid proposals on the North-South interconnector, Grid West and Grid South, and if he supports the putting of cables underground in all of the projects. And would he make a statement on the matter?
Number one.
Thank you very much, Lascian Corla. I thank Deputy Moynihan. On the 27th of March 2015, EirGrid published for public comment a discussion paper on Ireland's grid development strategy entitled Your Grid, Your Views, Your Tomorrow. The paper, which reviews inter alia the GridLink, Grid West and North-South transmission line projects, confirms that Ireland's energy transmission needs may be met with reduced new infrastructure build because of new technological developments and updated projections of future electricity demand. The discussion paper, which was subject to an independent peer review, confirms the need to reinforce the transmission system in the South East. It suggests an additional option to the original GridLink options. The original options would require either 1, the construction of significant amounts of new overhead lines, or 2, the laying of significant amounts of underground cable. The additional option contained in the recently published discussion document would involve an underwater cable in the Shannon estuary and upgrading existing transmission lines rather than building new lines. The discussion paper also puts forward options for Grid West. The options include underground cabling, a 400 kV overhead line option and a 220 kV overhead line with some of the line placed underground. The discussion paper reaffirms the need for the North-South transmission line project and that the existing proposal for a 400 kV overhead line remains the most appropriate solution for the project. In setting out its revised approach, EirGrid has confirmed that every project is different, so that an option that may be technically feasible for one project may not work for another. The Deputy will be aware of the independent expert panel that is overseeing the integrity of the process being undertaken by EirGrid to report on the Grid West and GridLink projects. The EirGrid reports are required to be comprehensive, route-specific studies of overhead and underground options for the projects. The panel has directed that the reports must be complete, comparable, overhead line comparable against underground cable, and objective, and that they must include assessments of the potential environmental impacts, technical efficacy and cost factors. The panel will in due course consider the reports and then provide an opinion to me on the reports in respect of each project. Thereafter, a further round of public consultation will be undertaken by EirGrid for each of the projects. I expect to receive the panel's opinion on the Grid West project over the coming days. The opinion on the GridLink project is expected during Q3 of this year.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Michael Moynihan.
In relation to the North-South interconnector and the undergrounding of it, whereas the report that came out, as I understand it, has options in terms of undergrounding and have, I suppose, laid clearly that Grid West and Grid South can be undergrounded, and why not the North-South interconnector? This has been a bone of contention, a massive bone of contention, particularly in Cavan, Monaghan and Meath over the last number of years. And EirGrid were in before the Oireachtas Committee on Communications, Energy and Natural Resources last Tuesday, I think this day week. And the line you gave there from the report says that there's technical, I suppose, solutions to each project, but they clearly gave on the record of the committee that it was technically possible to underground the cables from the North-South interconnector. This is the first time that EirGrid have actually said that it is technically possible. They have constantly been giving the line that it was technically impossible. And now that EirGrid have accepted that it is technically possible to underground it, why then should we not, the government and everybody involved, go after this and underground it, because it has become a massive source of contention. And if we accept what the government are saying and what EirGrid are saying, that the necessity of the project, well then I think the only option is to underground.
Thank you, Minister.
Will the Minister
sorry, I'll go back to the Deputy Minister.
Well, I'm not aware of precisely what EirGrid said to the committee, unfortunately, and so therefore I can't really comment on that. I did go through in my initial reply, Lascian Corla, the process that is undertaken in respect of all of these projects. It involves EirGrid initially setting out its position and also the independent expert panel assessing that and reporting to me. And that is the process that has been undertaken in relation to Grid West and Grid Link, and also in respect at the outset last year, the independent panel were also asked to look at the position in relation to the North-South project and came to certain conclusions in relation to the methodology that are being employed in relation to North-South. So it is a matter, ultimately for EirGrid with regard to bringing forward the proposals in the best interests of the grid and the network that we need for development in this country. And I have no doubt that the North-South interconnector is a critically important piece of infrastructure that we absolutely required in order to secure the system, and particularly in relation to the link between North and South. It's needed for the South, it's also needed for the North.
Deputy Michael Moynihan.
The information that the Chief Executive of EirGrid gave to the Oireachtas Committee last Tuesday, if memory serves me correctly, was that on the Grid West or the Grid South, that there would be one ducting needed in the channel, and to underground the North-South, all that was needed was a second, and I pursued him in this. Now, what was the technical issues that were required? And from my understanding, right through the last number of years, EirGrid have been constantly saying that it is not technically possible to underground the North-South interconnector. And I would ask the Minister to brief himself on what the Chief Executive of EirGrid said last Tuesday, because he did say that it was technically possible. Therefore, if it is technically possible to do it, bear in mind the huge issues that are there, going back over the years, the huge issues that are there in the communities, and in my opinion, the devastation that will be inflicted on those communities. I think that the government has no option but to meet with EirGrid and to discuss the undergrounding of it, and insist that when it is technically possible, as they admitted for the first time in this debate, therefore it should be considered as an option.
Minister, to conclude now.
And I'm asking him to actually to go to the Chief Executive of EirGrid, get clarity on exactly what he said. The Chief Executive did say that it was technically possible, therefore there is no further need for argument or concern inflicted upon the communities.
I have to call the Minister to conclude.
Well, I'm not in a position to comment on what precisely was said at the committee. However, I do know from my own knowledge of the project, and indeed just generally of the requirements in respect of grid, that technical feasibility certainly is one aspect, but technical feasibility is not the only aspect. And I think we're all aware that another dimension is the question of cost. So I would not comment any further in relation to North-South, other than simply to say to reduce the issue, if indeed that's what was done, and I can't comment on what was said in the committee because I'm not aware precisely what. And the deputy, of course, the deputy was there himself, and that's fair enough. But the issue is here, it seems to me, for EirGrid. They have brought forward the proposals. The independent expert panel addressed those proposals. And the question, I just make this as a general remark, that the technical feasibility, of course, is one aspect, but cost and the economics of such an approach is also very much key.